Hello, everyone. Welcome along to our Aintree Grand National Special. I'd like to be joined by once again by Jack and Tom Williams of JTW Equine Images. Lads, before we get into this, you've recently been doing a good job in the point-to-point scene, so fill us in.
Well, it's been a rather busy kind of few months, really. We've done Bangor, we've done Chaddersley. Last week we were at Tabley, and we've recently done Maysmore Park, to name a few courses. And yeah, it's just a case of keeping us ticking over until we can get back on a UK race course, because again, that's where all the people who you see, most of them started in pony racing and point to point. And now they're on the big stage, and hopefully that'll be the same for us again soon.
Okay, right. Grand National is upon us. In 48 hours, we'll have known the result. It's a race that tells its own story for many years before it's steeped in so much history. You compare races to Devon Lock, the Ghost Jump of which he performed, Hedge Hunter, Amberley House, Red Rum, of course, Tiger Roll. It's just steeped in history. And lads, before we actually delve deeper into this year's renewal, what was your first memory of this great race?
I think the first memory for myself, and I'm sure Tom will agree to this, is that I remember our dad had the winner of the 1998 Grand National at the Summit, and it started. It sort of kicked it off from there because we'd never heard of the Grand National before. We're like, well, what's the Grand National, Dad? And he said, oh, it's this race over the big Aintree fences. The what Aintree fences? We're six at this age, by the way. And it sort of started from there. We wanted to watch the next race over the national fences. Turned out we had to wait a year because we kind of missed all the races, but never mind. It was Bobby Joe when he won 1999. And then that just kick-started it. Wanted to know what this great race was about, why it was so different to the other races. I mean, they're running over these green hedges. Why are they running over green hedges? What's that all about? And yeah, just the obsession started. It's been seeped in history. You've got the likes of, like you say, Devon Lock, Amberley House. Tom's first win in the national was when he picked Amberley House in 2004, screened the bloody place down. And then I finally, at the God knows how many,
no regrets.
God knows what umpteenth time, I managed to pick the winner when Tiger Roll won in 2018. Yes, good old Tiger. It's a shame he's not running this year in what would have ultimately been his swan song, but oh well, fair enough. He's not in it, but there's 40 other horses that are. So let's get cracking.
That is a brilliant throw to me to kick things off with last year's winner at Manila Times. That word is such a tongue twister for me, I can just about say it really. Winner of the race last year, carrying 10 stone 3, I do believe it was. Now shoulders top weight of 11 stone 10. I'd be very surprised really if he wins this race this time around. I think it's going to be an ultimate career best. It'll definitely top his winning the race last year. I think everything went to plan last year during the race. He had all the luck basically when double shuffle fell. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on with any second now. But I would be a bit surprised here if he wins this race off top weight. Rachel Blackmore again retains the ride like last year, so I can see him being some interest in the market to people because it's Rachel Blackmore factor. But he's not on my short list, and at the moment he's 9-1. He's a bit too short for me, and I'll be very surprised if he wins this.
Yeah, completely agree. £21 more in the handicap than last year. I still don't know how the horse won last year. His form this year is nothing at all, quite literally. A fall and a pulled up. It's not ideal prep. And yes, okay, he'll have his backers, but for me, no thanks.
For me, not even the fact that Rachel's back aboard can rescue this one this season. I think he's badly out of form, unfortunately. And that's that.
Okay, short and sharp. Okay, moving into number 2, Delta Work. For me, he's going to be one of the main protagonists here. He took took very well to the cross country course and actually won the race, as we know. He beat Tiger Roll, which we'll touch upon after we've spoken about Delta Work. A short turnaround, though. I think you told me, Tom, off of camera, it was 23 days actually, the turnaround between Cheltenham and Aintree, which is a very short turnaround. Look, he had a very hard race on soft ground. I do think he's got a good chance here. I think he'll be in and around the frame, but the only concern for me is that short turnaround after a very hard race on soft ground. He brings some very good form into the race, a very classy horse in his time, been in and around the Gold Cup picture in the last couple of years too. I'm sort of umming and ahhing as to whether not to back him or not. What are you guys thinking of Delta Work?
I don't fancy him at all. I think if it was that he was on spring ground, he had a bit of a break, he'd come into this race absolutely one of the top one of the top fancies, if not the favourite. But it's the 24 days since Aintree. I can't take him because I'm thinking, what if it's taken a lot more out of him? That's it, sadly.
Jack?
Yeah, I think I completely agree. The fact of wearing maroon is not a hint that he could possibly win. But unfortunately, the turnaround's a little short. It was a very hard race. So, like Tom said, if there was a bit of a break, I think I'd fancy him. He's clearly a classy horse, and if he won, I think we'd all be like, whoa, that's a mega performance. But nah, for me, it's unfortunately, he's not on my shortlist.
Okay, right. Moving into Easy's Land, a horse who at one point looked to be a very promising horse in the cross-country sphere when he slammed Tiger Roll at Cheltenham 2 years ago. Subsequently, things haven't gone right for him. He's left Abbey Cottan and gone to John Joe O'Neill, but has failed to complete in all of his first 3 starts for John Joe. If the race was being run today, as we saw it was on softish ground, I would have fancied him to go well at a big price. He's currently 80 to 1 here, but his recent form suggests that it's probably going to be the same again, really. His jumping as well seems to be a problem for me. He 2 years ago when Jonathan Plugan, who won the cross country in December, I think when he first came over, I think 2 or 3 years ago now, I think it was, he jumped the Aintree Canal turn fence terribly, hit it hard, and Jonathan Plugan was calling a cab, basically jumping over that fence. My concern here for him is it's going to be run quite quickly. He might get taken off his feet. He's a small horse, and his jumping might get undone here. And at one point I was going to back him, but now the ground's come up quick, I won't be backing him.
It's a shame, really, because he looked, I think there's a couple of problems. I'm sure the team at Jackdaw's Castle will get to the bottom of him soon. Maybe with another year on his back, adjusting to British racing, he'll get there. But I know if he did come really well, there'd be a particular yard less than an hour away from us that would be celebrating. And that's where his sire's standing at Yorton Farm.
Jack?
I think I haven't got too much to say on him, unfortunately. I think he's clearly no problem with the distance. But, like you said, Luca, his jumping's a little bit sketchy in places, and also his prep runs have been absolutely dreadful. I know Jackdaw's Castle probably got big ideas and big plans, and Craigie, they're the ones that make the decisions overall, but just seems a little bit... It's not what you would call sort of... I'm struggling to think of the words that would be quite kind, to be honest, because it's unorthodox and unconventional, I think would be the correct words.
Indeed so. Right, we move on to number 4. Now we're going to get into the main protagonists here, and it's any second now, last year's third. I've watched that race back several times over the last year. I believe that sort of hindrance when Double Shuffle fell, I believe he would have won this race. He was extremely unlucky last year to not win this. We talk about entry in the luck. Rachel Blackmore last year had that luck. Double Shuffle falls at 1 or 2, I think the second fence after Valentine's. He falls to his left, which basically stops any second now right in his tracks. Loses great pitch down on the inside rail next to last year's winner Manila Times, and is shuffled all the way back to sort of towards the back of the field. And what struck me about his performance was the amount of ground this lad made up on the second circuit was just remarkable, really. And the camera saw a cut to an overhead shot crossing the Melling Road second time. He's about 12 lengths behind the field, behind the main sort of quintet. By the time in which they turned for home, he's just right on their tails. He made up so much ground last year, and ultimately at the elbow, he ran out of steam, most notably due to that severe hampering he had with Double Shuffle. He's carrying 11 stone 8 this time around, I think £7 up for his run last year. Beat some of the main protagonists in the Bobby Joe chase last time by a narrow margin too. Ted Walters laid him out for this race again. They seem pretty keen on him at home. The signals all look good. And I think if anyone here is looking for a solid each-way bet in this race, it's him. He's currently 9 to 1 here. I'd be absolutely gutted if he's not in the first 4.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'll agree with you. I think last year he was good. I think this season he could be even better. So
Yeah, again, completely agree. His Bobby Joe Chase victory was absolutely brilliant. He's been clearly laid out for the race. He was given the field £8 in the Bobby Joe Chase, and he beats Ascari at 10, Borough Saint and Cocoa Beach, all of which we oppose on Saturday. But he is actually one of my selections. I'll make it quite clear and obvious right there. This lad's done nothing wrong. The weight is a slight concern. The trends for the Grand National tend not to suit somebody, a horse carrying over 11 stone. But as we've seen in recent years, if they're a classy enough horse, they can do it. Tiger Roll, Many Clouds, they've all carried the weight over 10 stone, 13, 11 stone. Even Don't Push It won in 2010 off 11.5. So if they've got the class, they can do it. So that to me isn't a concern. I think he's much better than he was last year. I think he's more than £7 better. So as a result, yeah, he ticks all the boxes for me.
Right, number 5, Run Wild Fred. For me, he's not my fancy. I've not given him too much thought, really. Was last seen in the National Hunt Chase when finishing second to Statler. Went round most of that race, in my opinion, as the target on his back. Statler picked him off and went away quite well. He finds it hard to win races, and David Russell's on board again on Saturday, but he's not my fancy, just short and simple, really.
Yeah, same here. Like you say, he was the target, he was aimed at, and I just think his stamina, it's not quite there enough for a national, maybe a year in time. But for me, there are definitely other candidates that are better. Although I have a sneaky feeling somebody might think he's okay, Tom.
I just think his run in the National Hope was better than it was. I think that all he does is stay. Yeah, he's a bit of a lazy horse and does what he tends to do on his own. But I think when others are crying enough, he'll still be there. If he takes to the national fences like a duck to water, like his stablemate did to the cross-country fences at Cheltenham, we're looking at potentially a very, very good run from him. The fact he's 11 stone 7 as a novice shows how good he could really be.
It's an interesting case you make there. He wouldn't be for me. Again, he's only an 8-year-old, so he's going to be probably a fixture in this race for the next couple of years anyway. So if it doesn't happen this year, then there's always an extra couple of years to try. Number 6, Lost in Translation, for me, is in this race in the hope that something comes up and he might take to this. A former Gold Cup placed horse in his time, in his pomp, has lost his way dramatically since. He won at Ascot in December. I think it was the 1965 Chase, as Jack said off camera to me. But again, after that, things just went wrong again. He was last seen in the Ultima. And just again, it's short and sharp. He's not my fancy again.
Yeah, completely agree. Again, I'll just keep this nice and short. You said everything that needs to be said, Luca. It's a shame because he's a very classy horse in his day, winning the Betfair Chase. But unfortunately, remember, this is a lad who was third in a Gold Cup once. But he's just not the force he was. I think they're just trying something new in the hope it does a revival. But no, he's not for me. But, I still hold him in high regard, and he's a very good horse for me.
Tom?
I love this lad. I think he's on his day. He's amazing, but something's bothering him. And I don't think this is going to be his day, sadly.
Okay, right. We're moving to Brahma Ball. Again, short and simple. I was at Newbury when he ran in the Ladbroke Trophy. I have no idea still to this day how he finished third. He came from a mile back to finish third. And if he does that on Saturday in the National, he won't really be seen to any effect. His jumping at times can be very hit and miss. He's 80 to 1 here, and he's that price for a reason. And once again, short and simple, I don't give him much of a chance here.
Nope, again, same here. Just doesn't have, for me, that sort of the cruising speed that's necessary. He seems to do all his best work at the end of the race, but I think if you're trying to do catch-up, I mean, today, for example, complete sizing. He made a bad mistake. He was at the back, and it was catch-up all the way, and he didn't really make much of an impact on the race. So again, those sorts of horses, the hold-up horses, they've got to start making progress. Unfortunately, Brahma Ball gets going far too late.
Would you be in agreement, Tom?
I agree.
And we mentioned about quickly today that the race over the National Fences Labroy was a prime example too. A thorough stayer, missed a start, standing start, never got on terms and finished fourth, which was quite remarkable, really.
Yep, correct.
Right, we're moving to an intriguing contender here in Burrows Saint. He was well fancied by Manil last year coming into the race. He won the Irish National the year before, and we've seen in the past that Irish National double can be completed with number 6 Valverde in 2006. For a large part of this race last year, Burrows Saint looked the winner. He jumped and travelled ever so well, and crossing the Melling Road. If you watch Rachel Blackmore's documentary of when she won the race, she even thought and said that, oh my gosh, Patrick's going to win the Grand National because he was going so well. All of a sudden, he gets to the second last, the petrol gauge just dropped, flashed red, and he was paddling home. And he reminds me of a big fella thanks type of horse. And if people at home don't know who he is, he was a horse, who'd always been around the Grand National picture, would be bang there in at least a couple of his races in the National, but just would never get home. My concern for him this year is he didn't get home last year. What's going to change this year?
Well, I think that's a very good point you raised about the documentary. The fact that Rachel and Patrick both, thought you can go and win a national. No, you can go and win a national. And Rachel said, oh my God, Patrick's going to go and win the national. And I think anyone who was a Burrows Saint backer, and I must admit, I did have a tiny flutter on him last year. I think we all know racing blogger, Stephen Power. I think everyone would have been going, come on, come on. And then it was like you said, the petrol gauge, bump, and there was nothing there. I had him that day. I was exactly the same as you. Melling Road, he's looking fantastic. Turning in for the 2 fences before home, he's looking fantastic. And then all of a sudden, he gets over the second last, and it was like, there's nothing here. He's got more weight to carry this year, and I think that could be a problem. And based on what he did last year, he really disappointed me, and I think the stronger candidates.
Tom?
I'll be honest with you, I've never seen this lad as an out-and-out stayer. He hasn't quite got enough to get there. He's a good horse, don't get me wrong, but I just don't see him winning a race of this length. A race perhaps like Warwick's Classic Chase, he could be a very good contender for, but not the Nash. It's just too far for him.
I agree. Number 9, Mount Ida. The reason I laugh is because there's a bit of a private joke we've got going on with Mount Ida. Can we say it or not? I'm not too sure, really.
Well, I'll say it anyway. So for everyone who remembers last year, Cheltenham, Mount Ida was the final leg of a certain Irish pundit's treble on ITV Racing. And I tell you what, I tell you now, if he was on here, he'd be saying, well, I tell you what, Luca, this is going to be the winner of this race. If Longhouse Poet doesn't go and win, I really think this horse is going to win. Does everyone remember my treble last year? Because I haven't forgot.
That's brilliant. Right, let's get back to a serious fact here about Mount Ida. Her jumping issues, I think, are a concern here. And she's not one I'm too keen on, just really for that reason.
I think if she ran
to win at Cheltenham, but it's difficult because she could come with an absolute steaming run, but then might fluff the second last and lose all chance.
I think the problem as well with this horse is if she puts in the run like she did at Cheltenham last year, yes, it was very exciting to watch if you're a Mount Ida backer. Unfortunately, again, it's the hold-up horse in the Grand National. I mean, she's got to motor, and like you said, Luca, there's some jumping errors that sometimes creep in, and you'd have to be concerned. I mean, she did get going far too late again at Cheltenham only a few weeks ago, which again, if we're using the same argument as what we did with Delta Work, it's a bit close to Cheltenham, and you can't say that race wasn't hard for her because she was pretty much flat out for 3-4 furlongs, making up ground. So how much that's taken out of her, we'll need to see.
Okay, right, moving into number 10. This is a horse I do fancy, and my only concern with him now is the ground might just be a bit too quick for him, and it's Longhouse Poet here. The form in the fastest chase looks very strong. You've got Ascari, 10 in here, Death Duty in there, Clap de Rear in here, Chris's Dream. It's a very solid race, and he won it very well. Stayed on very strongly to beat Franco de Port. Prior to that, he'd run over hurdles over 2 mile 3 and was last seen running a Navan in the Boyne hurdle. So it's been a a very shrewd campaign set out by Martin Brazel, of course, who trained number 6 Valverde in 2006 and also trained double 7 in 2014 to get round for Tony McCoy in third in his penultimate national ride. As I said before, my only concern is the ground might just be against him. All of his form's on a sort of heavy or soft surface. He looks a wonderful profile to stay the trip. But I keep saying it and go back to the point, the ground is my concern.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. And again, you know, this is another horse that Kevin Blake has tipped. And you'd have to say, looking at his form, if this was on soft, he'd have a great chance. But again, for that reason, I just can't. I can't put 100% faith in him. And you know, when you're picking a horse in the national, you've got to have 100% faith. And whereas I was very sweet on Any Second Now, and I'll be as sweet on a couple of others for an each way chance, unfortunately, I can't see the same. But you know what? If Mount Ida or Longhouse Poet was to come each way, I think Kevin Blake would be very happy. And I think, therefore, you would be too, Luca.
I would be if Longhouse Poet did. Tom, what are you thinking of Longhouse Poet?
Don't fancy him because of the ground. If it was that he was winning over good to soft, then I think he would be favourite. But the fact is, he prefers a softer surface. He's not going to get that. Is it going to mean he's run off his feet? And also, his last run was not exactly amazing, unfortunately.
That was, I mean, that was over hurdles, but I can sort of see your point there. I'm just gutted it's not ran today, the national, because if it was ran today, I think they'd have a great chance. And I just think we're looking like we're going to get good ground on Saturday. And I think, unfortunately, as you mentioned, both of you, he's just going to happen too quick for him. It brings us now on to Fiddler on the Roof, who, for me, looks to be a horse who's got a nice profile for this. I was, again, at Newbury for the Ladbroke Trophy. He would have won that race had Remastered. Had he not been hampered, Remastered came down in the home straight. He had to sidestep him. Brendan Powell done a very good job to even sit on him. He almost came out the side door and stuck on very nicely. He followed up a couple of sound runs. Was last seen finishing in behind Fortescue at Ascot, being outstayed on the day, unfortunately on soft ground. It's a difficult one for me really because he's not on my shortlist, but he's a horse who I can see running well and taking to this though. He seems to have that very good running style that could be suited to Aintree, but he's not on my shortlist though, and I'm intrigued to hear what you both think.
I can't bet on him. No, not. I don't think he's an out-and-out stayer, but again, this is our team. They'll have had this in mind with him all season. He's just too much of an enigma and unknown for me. Doesn't really meet the sort of Grand National trends for a horse that you'd like to look at. So for me, I'll be sidestepping him.
I can't knock him for, apart from 1-0, he's never been up for, he was 4th and 5th in his points, but since he's joined going racing, he's been no worse than that 0, and every other run, he's either been 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. Consistent, yes. I think his jumping has improved, and he looks to be an out-and-out stayer for me. I think this could be, it could be a nice little each way for someone.
Again, he's only an 8-year-old, so he's going to be, I think, in and around this race for the next couple of years again. And
yeah.
I agree with Jack. I just haven't been keen on him. For whatever reason, I just haven't really been too keen on him. I think there's others in here who've got a better chance. It brings us now on to 2 for Gold, the Fleur de Lis winner at number 12. Again, one who, for me, I don't think he's going to stay. Owned by the same syndicate when the Rainbow Hunter, who was just desperately unlucky in several nationals. He just always found a way to just either fall or get brought down, which is incredibly unlucky here. Look, he ran a great race at Grade 1 company last time out in behind Fakir Derry at Ascot. But again, I can't really make too much of a case for him.
I think Ollie Bell will be disappointed to hear that. Probably going to be disappointed, just like the rest of them says. But I feel personally, there's a big warning screaming at his recent runs, and by that I mean in the last year. He was having no impression over the fences when he unseated the rider after Canal Turn. I'm just thinking, will it be happening too quick for him? Will he be able to stand the test? I'm not sure. But I will say this, he might, if he takes to the fences, he might be there near enough down the back straight as they've come past over Valentine's. He might still be there and he might give them a run for their money. But I'm thinking I'd like to see him in a Beecher chase. I'd like to see him in one of them, but I'm just a bit cautious about, is he going to go a bit further?
Jack?
I actually like this lad for this race. I think it's a race that you wouldn't necessarily have thought about putting him in, but I think he definitely deserves his chance. I mean, you look at his form over 3 miles, and it's not too shabby at all. I mean, you take a look at the 3-mile races. He's either first or bang there. So he definitely deserves a stamina test. Yes, it's a relative unknown. There is obviously bias in the fact that I absolutely adore this horse. I think he's absolutely bloody gorgeous. He's a horse that wears his heart on his sleeve every time. And yes, all right. The only slight concern you'd have, apart from the stamina, is the fact he didn't really look like he took the fences. But that was at 2 mile 5 furlongs in a Topham. And I think if you're expecting a Grand National horse to run in a Topham chase and do well in it, nah, he's going to be off his feet. So I think the slightly slower pace, once they've got the first cavalry charge out to the first couple of fences and they start settling in, you'll find he will hopefully get into his rhythm and he'll start making some ground. So yeah, he's 40 to 1, 50s around that mark last time I looked, but
40s,
he's not without a chance. And I think if he turns in and he's running okay, I think he could get a place at minimum.
Very good case. Right. Brings us now on to number 13. I take a deep breath. It's Santini. I've followed this lad off a cliff and a cliff and a cliff for so long now. Yeah. He's in here now because where else can he go? He's just, with all due respect to connections, he's just so slow. Where else can he go, basically? And unfortunately, the ground's going to be too quick. He'll be playing catch up for most of this race. I do think an extreme stamina test is going to suit him, but not on good ground. He's either going to take to this and be Santini, or he's going to be like a Munga Hostin, who was in 2007, I do believe it was smashed off the board before the off from 14th, I think, into as short as like 8th, I think it was. Got to the 7th, Foynaven. You know what? No, refused. And Santini could easily be one of those horses who either loves it or he hates it. But again, similar to Longhouse Poet, ground's a massive concern for him.
Yep, agreed. Couldn't say anything more than that. He's admirable. Polly Gundry has obviously got a good one, but unfortunately, not for me.
Same here. I think stamina test on, an absolute bog would be his absolute test. So please, Polly, stick him in the feature chase. That would be great to see him running that race, but I'm thinking it might be a bit too quick for him this time, unfortunately. But I actually cannot wait to see him over a Grand National fence. I think he's made for them, but will he be able to go on the ground? Not sure. Too much of an unknown quandary.
I think what intrigues me the most about him is how he's going to fare in a charge down to the first fence, because he's going to be taken off his feet. Let's be honest, he will. And will he be just behind the 8 ball all the way around? I think he will. Moving into number 14, it's Sam Crow. About 4 years ago, he was meant to be the equine version of Christ, the second coming after winning at Cheltenham. Everyone built him up to be a superstar horse who was going to reign supreme and be a superstar, basically. It never happened. He went backwards when he went over fences. Somehow won a Marsh in 2020, which was a rather big surprise, really. But I would say it's disappointing to see him in this, because although it would be typical of Sam Crow to come here and enjoy himself and be like Balco Day Flow and run well, it would be typical of Sam Crow, but I can't see it happening.
Yep.
Where do we lie with him? Where do we go with him? It must be as frustrating for his connections, because the poor lad's talented, but my word, it's just so difficult to get a decent run out of him anymore. He absolutely hosed up at Cheltenham first time round. He then goes a year or so later and wins. He absolutely, well, it wasn't a year later. He went 2 years later because he was out at Cheltenham. He wasn't 100%. But my word, he ran really well.
Yeah, the thing is, if Sam Crow eats the fences, then he has a chance. But I'm sorry,
it's just a shame, really, because I keep wanting to make a case for him coming and making like Lazarus rising from, there, but I'm just not sure about him. Will he take to the fences? I don't know.
I think at an appropriate time of year for resurrection, this would be the biggest resurrection we've seen since Jesus rose from the tomb. I just think it would be, because he's coming from near obscurity to come here, and if he won a Grand National, I think that would just sum up Sam Crow's career in a nutshell. It really
I
would.
think it's ultimately, this is what you can say. So that's what the Irish were saying when they said it's a second coming. So I'll also have next week's lottery numbers and who won between Wales and either Scotland or Ukraine in the World Cup qualifiers. That'll do me.
I just think the only people backing him are possibly people who followed him or maybe have the sort of name Sam, really. It sounds rather stupid, but you tend to get that on national once a year. Better gamblers, unfortunately. It moves on now to Ascari at 10, a horse who was seen in the National Hunt Chase last year and behind Galvin, the next destination. We also had a certain Stone Leopardess in that race and also remastered the Mighty Don, so it wasn't the worst race in the world. It was last seen finishing a very, very narrow second in the Bobby Joey behind any second now. I think he's going to have a good chance here. I think the step up in trip shouldn't be too much of a problem. And for me, I think he's got a nice profile here. And I'm very confident of a big run.
He's got a problem, though. He's got one problem.
What's that?
Any second now. Anyway, end of case.
Well, that's probably correct. I do agree with that.
Any second now might have more stamina and everything, but I can't knock his prep. He had a nice run, nice comeback run. Then nice by 24 lengths. Admittedly, it was a hot chase. And then he ran really well at Cheltenham last year and probably had still an effect on him when he run in the Fairy House. What was the race again? What's it called? The Irish National, yes, at Fairy House that Freewheeling Dylan won. And I just think to myself, this lad's had a much calmer prep. He's going to get some decent ground, and I think that he'll give the McNeil family a real run for their money. So best of luck to the McNeil family, one of the best in racing.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a little nod to the McNeil family. Absolutely great for racing, and I'd love to see their lad go really, really well. But unfortunately, I think that the problem for Ascari 10 is not the track, the trip, the fences, etc. It's the fact he's got to run against any second now who looks like he could be, his nemesis again.
I do agree with that. Right, number 16, Good Boy Bobby. Daryl Jacob had the choice of, I do believe, him in Kildare. He's chosen Good Boy Bobby. For me, he's got a squeak, but I can't. He's not one I'm backing, but I can see him running okay in this. He's run consistently well so far this season. A narrow second to I Right in the rehearsal in the snow at Newcastle. He then won the Royal Merrick and was last seen finishing 7th in behind Captain North and Kitty's Delight in the Coral Trophy, which in hindsight isn't too bad form at all, really, considering what they've both done. Where are we both at with Good Boy Bobby here? I know, Jack, I'll start with you because you spoke about him quite in detail off camera to me during the week when you messaged me about him. I think, if I remember correctly, you're quite confident about him.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm overly confident, but what I think about this lad is he definitely stays and he definitely digs in. He's been running at 2.5 miles for a lot of his career, but every time he stepped into 3 miles, he's really put a gutsy performance in. There were excuses last time at Kempton, but again, like you say, the form's actually, when you look at it on face value, was not that bad given what Kitty's Light's just done. He's not without a chance, and I'm sure Daryl will have weighed up all the options. Maybe could squeak in a place. You wouldn't be surprised if he did. But I think if people are looking for a shrewd or each way alternative, I think he could be one. And with a name like Bobby, I think there's going to be a fair few people on him anyway for the, the fun backers.
And where are we at with Good Boy Bobby, Tom?
I could lose everything in life and be turfed out on the streets, and I'd still be happy because this lad, the only time I was ever accredited at Cheltenham up to this point, I got an absolutely beautiful photo of him that I'm pleased to say is one of my favourites. So will always have a special place in my heart. I think he's an out-and-out stayer now myself. He couldn't live with the pace when he was in that novice chase at Cheltenham. And he just seemed to me in his runs this season that when other horses are crying enough, he's still there, and he's still finding more at the end. So if he manages to translate that form over to the race on Saturday, he might be giving some people a run for the money. And 33 to 1 is not a bad price as well.
Yeah.
Number 17, Lord de Manil. Quickly run through him. He wants it deep, deep and muddy. Not going to get that here. Again, like last year, we'll find it too quickly and probably won't get round.
It's a shame that he won't get his ground, because I think his owners and trainer must be absolutely frustrated, because he clearly retains a lot of ability, but it's just we need to see it absolutely bottomless for it to come out. And unfortunately, it won't be again. So fingers crossed he gets round safe, but no, not for me.
Tom?
He needs to have it as probably like melted chocolate for him to actually run to his best. And sadly, he's not going to get that. So a real shame, really.
Again, number 18, Cocoa Beach. I'll throw this both to you guys here because he's not one I've looked at in too much detail. It's a huge price. At the moment of recording this, he's 66 to 1. Where are we both at with him?
2021 Fiestes Chase winner. However, his form this season has been nothing that you'd want to shout out about, especially given how any second now beaten by 59 lengths in the Bobby Joe Chase. So, yeah, again, another one for any second now, and another one that's not fancying the one that I'm not fancying in Cocoa Beach.
Tom?
Can't back him, I'm sorry.
Backing, did you say?
Can't back him.
Can't back him. Okay, wonderful. I sort of got a bit like misheard you there. Number 19, Darasha Counter, Ladbroke Trophy winner a couple of years ago now. If I do memory serves me correctly, he's not too far for similar marks when he won that race a couple of years ago. I think he could come into this race with a decent enough chance. My only concern is he was tried at a marathon trip in the Midlands National, and I do believe he pulled up when he actually was tried at an extreme stamina trip.
Did you hear that then? Sorry to interrupt. My neck just clicked.
That is a slight concern for me. I do believe, if I memory serves me correctly, he did pull up in that Midlands National. I think he did.
He did. I was nodding, and then I heard my neck go click.
Running through that was on heavy ground, so I can forgive him for that. He was last seen running a decent enough trial in Denman Chase when blowing up. Probably, you could have expected that really. Coming to the race without any match fitness, had been off the track for well over a year or so. Adam Wedge takes a ride here. That's the only thing put me off backing him, really. Not Adam, of course, superb jockey. Before people give me pelters for that, but since the extreme stamina trip, he was tried that at Toxton and didn't enjoy it.
No, I think exactly the same. I was looking at his form for this race. It's admirable, but I don't know. When I'm looking at a national horse, I have to get the specific vibe, and unfortunately, I just don't quite get it. He was on my shortlist of about 10 horses, but then when I was looking at the nitty gritty stuff, I was like, no, I'm a bit concerned that he's not going to quite get there, unfortunately. So while he might pop round and he might get, round in time, I just don't think this year is his year. Maybe try him again at another stamina test earlier in the season. Like, why not go for the Welsh National?
It's a valid point. Heavy ground, though, most likely, and he pulled up on heavy national.
But you know what? In the last few years, there's not been as many heavy ground nationals as you think. I know when Elegant Escape won, the ground wasn't that heavy. I think it was good to soft only. But then when Potter's Corner won, yeah, it was a bit bottomless. So, but if the stars align and he gets his ground in a Welsh National, he could be worth a little quid.
Where are you at with him, Tom?
Pretty much the same as Jack, really. It's a decent comeback run. I'd like to see him over a stamina trip, but will he take to the fences?
I'm not convinced, really. Are you?
Not sure.
No.
Remains to be seen.
No, definitely not.
All right, number 20 brings me on to one of my solid each-way picks for the race. It's Kildasart, one of my all-time favourite horses in training at the moment. I'm not backing just for that reason. I do believe he's got a superb chance in this race. He was a narrow second in an Ultima a couple of years ago. I backed him for that, was gutted. Prior to that, I was at Kempton when he ran in the Coral Trophy, which was actually the Bet Bright Trophy, I think it was back then. and he jumped pretty bad all the way round, but flew home to finish third, and then followed up the course for that second in the Ultima behind the conditional. Was then seen running in the Yorkshire Hurdle at Wetherby, I think it's called, the Bet365 Yorkshire Hurdle, I think it is, and finished third that day. Then ran a great race in the Ladbroke Trophy, finishing seventh. And has been off the course ever since, and then ran in the Greatwood Gold Cup a couple of weeks ago and ran a superb trial here. I think he's a cracking each way bet here. I think the step up in trip's going to suit him. James Byrne on board is a massive plus for me. He's got a nice profile. He's a good jumper, sound traveller. I think he's the best of the British. Bold statement, but I think he is.
I'll give Tom the opportunity to have a few words about Kildesar because I've got a few.
Well, I'm looking at a piece of form from 3 years ago. Handicap chase, grade 3, Mr. Malarkey off top weight, and he beat him by 5 lengths, giving him £4. Seems that whenever he goes up in trip on decent spring ground, or even indeed soft, he was beaten a neck at Cheltenham by the conditional. The great and sadly ill-fated the conditional. I just think this lad needs a stamina trip. Yeah, his run up over fences could have gone a bit better at Newbury, but that was admittedly 2 years ago nearly. And then since then, he's had a decent prep run by the imperious Paint the Dream, who absolutely posed up at Newbury in a grade 3. But yeah, I think he might have a decent each way chance.
Okay, so my thoughts on Kildesar. He was one horse that when I went in my shortlist, I couldn't get him out of it. Could not find a flaw with him. He'll like the ground. He's back at the same winning mark when he won at Aintree, 148. He's got a lovely weight. You'll appreciate the stamina trip. We know he stays because he was second in an Ultima. And his comeback run was very pleasing. He ticks the boxes. If it hadn't been for any second now, I'd probably be leaning this lad for my absolute pick in the National.
It's also worth noting that Ladbroke Trophy he finished seventh in. The first 4 actually started from tape rise down on the inside rail, and it sort of favoured that day to be sort of down by the inside, whereas Kildesar that day was ridden wide. Cloth Cap, the Hollow Ginge, I can't remember who got second and third now, but they all started down towards the inside rail, which favoured that day. So I can draw a line through that. I just think he's got a very good chance. It's a bold statement saying he's best of the British, but I do believe he's going to finish the best out of all of our horses this year. I'd be very surprised if he's not placed. I think he's a cracking each way bet, massive odds. I'm happy to have a bet on him at 40-1.
I agree with you, Luca, and I think it would be absolutely fantastic for the wonderful yard that is Ben Pauling. They've been very kind to myself and Tom. They are going through a change. They're moving now to Naunton Downs from their base just outside Bolton on the Water. But the very best of luck with the move, Ben. You've got some fantastic young stars, and it's an absolute, pleasure to see you what you do best, training. And fingers crossed, the best of luck on Saturday for you, because I think Kildesar will run a mighty race for you.
Okay, number 21, Discarama. 7th in the race last year. His prep wasn't the most straightforward last year. It was very sort of up and down, and he faded in 7th. His prep this year has been a lot more straightforward, but that sort of run last year when he sort of faded quite tamely is a concern for me here. Again, not on my shortlist. What are your thoughts?
Not on mine as well.
Nope.
Simple as that. Okay. Top Vile Ben, number 22, fell in the Beach Chase in December. A real heavy fall. Since then, he won a couple of nice hurdle races at Lingfield and that valuable Winter Million card. And I do believe it was I want to say Wetherby. I could be wrong, but I do want to say Wetherby. Let me just double check that quickly. I think it was Wetherby.
Third at Wetherby to good boy Bobby.
Of course he was. Yes.
And beaten by Holston, the great Holston at Haydock, but there's a similarity with them 3 runs. It was either soft or heavy, and he's not getting that.
The intriguing piece of form, though, in that race in the Rendlesham was that he beat a Potem's final winner by 29 lengths and third wind. Again, I completely agree with you both. The ground's a concern here. He'll give a bold showing for a large part of the race, but the way in which he crashed out in the Beecher is a massive concern here, that if he makes a mistake at 1 or 2 somewhere, will it catch him out again?
Yeah, exactly the same thing. If I was Top Field Ben and I crashed out heavily in the national fences, the mere sight of them again would make me think, oh no. So not for me.
Although there was Pinot de Rey in late 2013, fell in the Beach Chase, came back in the following year, 2014, the spring of that season, and won the national. So strange things can happen. You know, a Beach Chase, if you don't get round in December, it's never always a bad thing. But I will be very surprised if he wins this race. I'm a big fan of Philip Kirby. I think he's a great trainer, but he wouldn't be my pick in this. Moving on, Enjoy Dalen. I think he's got a cracking chance here. I like him a lot. JP's bought him especially to have a runner in this race. Kieran Murphy trains Conor Roar on board. Third in last year's Irish National. He's had a decent enough prep for this. He was last seen running in the Paddy Power Chase, I do believe it was. Oh no, pardon me, that was the 2 starts ago in the Paddy Power Chase, in behind Schoolboy Owls and Ben Dundee. That form's not worked out too great since, because both have since gone to Cheltenham and not performed too great. He was last seen actually over hurdles, I do believe, and finishing 5th in the handicap hurdle, just to shoot him up for this year. JP's bought him for this race. I think the stamina trip is going to be of his enjoyment. I think he's going to come into this he's going to enjoy. 8 years old. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's got a good chance here.
Stamina, and then just to add a bit more, some more stamina. I genuinely think this lad is built for stamina, and this one's going to go. He had a lovely prep run when he comes back, and then he goes in a handicap chase worth 100,000, comes third to Schoolboy Hours, who, if he'd have got in, would have been brilliant. But then he looks to be one of these, what I like to call an Irish plot job. You see him a lot at the festival, you see him a lot in handicaps, but this lad seems to be laid out for the Grand National. The only concern about him is, will he take to the fences? If he takes to the fences, this lad could be unstoppable.
Jack, yourself, are you in the Enjoy Dalen camp, or are you tilting against him?
I did put him in my shortlist, but unfortunately, I've taken him out as I think there's better candidates. So he was, he's got some likeable form. Whether it's strong enough to win a race of this caliber remains to be seen.
Okay, moves on to number 24. That's Annabelle Fly, a horse who's finished 4th and 5th in 2 nationals and been placed in a Gold Cup as well. Brings a lot of good form to the table in his pomp. I backed him for the race last year at 25s. I thought he was an outstanding each-way bet last year. Unfortunately, any backer of his, your chance was gone after the first. He was in last, jumping the first. Took off from the first a mile off, landed right on top of the fence, race over, got pulled up at the Melling Road first time. His prep this year has been quiet, I do believe, over hurdles. He's been beaten 15th out of 17 over hurdles. I can't back him this year, unfortunately. He's 12 years old now. I think he's sort of past his prime now. Last year's run was a concern. Then Luke Dempsey's on him this time around, not Dennis O'Regan. Look, I just can't. I'm struggling to make any sort of point for him this year.
Yep, same here.
Tell you where this lad will absolutely shine. There's race night at Cheltenham. If he goes hunting next year, gets him over for that one. There's a 4-mile race he'd absolutely love. But I don't think he'll win a national, unfortunately. He's a good horse and admirable, but his time has been, and he was unlucky not to win it.
I do believe, and I also read about Tony Martin's article about him. He actually now in time regrets running him in the Gold Cup to bring him on for a prep run here, because the turnaround is so short. And I do think, had he not won the Gold Cup, I do believe he would have won the Grand National. But unfortunately for him, no, it never happened. I just can't see it happening now, age 12. I'm very surprised. I think at his age, I think he's going to struggle to keep up on the ground. I think it's going to be happening a bit too quick for him. And I think he can get round, but he'll be one of those horses who's sort of probably 12th or 13th or something like that without really troubling the leaders. Number 25 is Dingo Dollar. I backed him in the Scottish National last year, and I felt for a long way he was going to win. Then along came Mighty Thunder to pip him at the post, which was gutting. I think Sandy Thompson's quite bullish on his chances here. He's a bold front runner, very good jumper, does stay, a thorough stayer too. Ryan Manning is on board again. Like in 2013, Aurora's Encore, 66-1, the exact same price here with Dingo Dollar as well. Jack, I do believe he was on your shortlist, wasn't he?
He was, and you look at a lot of his form, and you have to look at it and go, what's exactly wrong with it? But I don't know. I just think, having looked at it, he kind of ran out of petrol at 4 miles, and obviously that's okay if you're winning a race like the Midlands National. Not too good if you're going to try and win a Grand National because you've still got 2 fences and a running to go. So I don't know. I think whilst he's an admirable horse and he could run a mighty race, again, I just think there's a couple of other horses that are much better.
Tom, what do you think?
It's hard to make a case for him aside from that run because he was pulled up over his last run over the national fences and he's not been in the best of form this season.
That's fair enough. Moving into Freewheeling Dylan, last year's Irish National winner, the humongous price. We all remember the clip, the owners went viral, screaming around the living room, basically begging for this horse to win. It was fantastic. Normally, he jumps okay, but he didn't get round in the cross country in December. He unseated the rider, pulled up over hurdles since. Unfortunately, going into a national, that's not what you want really from a horse. He does stay pretty well, but unfortunately, not getting around in the cross country, it's a concern here. I want to make a case for him, but I just can't. I can't see any reason why he's going to trouble the leaders here today, or on Saturday, sorry. He's a massive price and not for me.
Yeah, same here, Luca.
Okay, we both all agreed on that pretty quickly. That's the beauty of this. You see, we can rattle through this, we can all agree, and we can move on to the next horse, which is Class Conte. Again, short, sharp, and sweet. No chance.
Yep, agree. Yep, agree.
Number 28, Noble Yates, confirmed today to be Sam Willie Cohen's final ride in the race before he sails off into retirement. Jockey's had a glittering career over the fences anyway, with the likes of Libertine, Rajdhani Express, to name 2 horses. The rest have sort of escaped me now, unfortunately. I'll pass over to you guys here. He's a bit quirky, Noble Yates, isn't he? A bit of a quirky sort. What do we think with him?
He hasn't really jumped up out at me for this race. I know there's a fair few that fancy him, but for me, again, he's not he hasn't really jumped out as screaming at me like I'm the national winner and I'm going to get an each way. He might do, now I've said that, but no, I think there's a couple of other horses again, which is a shame because you'd really like Mr. Whaley Cohen to go out on a high. He said he wanted to go out to Aintree, so he's going to get his wish. He's been absolutely fantastic on the point-to-point sphere. He won the big race of Larkhill's season in February aboard Matry Express. So he's done a hell of a lot for racing and point-to-point, and he's going to get a very good retirement. And I think it'll be a toss-up between, what does he prefer? Is 6 wins over the national fences or 1 in a Gold Cup?
Tom, yourself, where are you at, Noble Yates?
He'll win a decent handicap next season, but not this year.
Intriguing, he's only a 7-year-old too, so he's got a lot of racing ahead of him, so he's definitely one to say.
Plenty of time.
Definitely. Number 29, the last year's Scottish National, the Mighty Thunder, for the combination he won in 2017, with 1 for Arthur, Derek Fox, Lucinda Russell. Again, just keeping it simple, he's not been on my shortlist here. Hasn't really achieved too much since winning the Scottish National. His last 2 starts, he's failed to complete, pulled up twice.
He's had a wind up.
He's had wind surgery, but remains to be watched, really. He might fly home, but I'd better watch him this time.
I agree, watch brief, I believe, as well. Jack, your thoughts?
Again, yeah, just saying the same as Tom. He's had wind surgery, so it might bring a revival, but 2 previous non-completions in a Grand National year has to be seen. Although I know it was absolutely bottomless at Musselburgh when he did pull up, so you probably can't hold him too much for that. But again, they took him for wind up straight after that, so obviously he must have made a noise and not quite finished in the manner that he perhaps is accustomed to. So yeah, he could run a screamer off his wind surgery. It might take 1 or 2 runs to kick him, but hey, again, he's just a best watched for me.
Okay, number 30, last year's favourite, Cloth Cap. He gargled in the race last year and was pulled up quite sharply. John Joy Neal since got him straight in and worked on his wind. He comes into this race this year not in the same form as he was in last year. I do believe he was in the form of his life going into National last year, just picking up wins left, right, and centre. Ladbroke Trophy, an impressive win at Kelso. I do believe the ground will be in his favour. I think he wants good ground, if I remember correctly. I think John Joe was in favour of good ground for him and wants soft for Easy's land. I think he's very nice. I think he's got a good chance. I don't see any reason why he can't run about a good race here. Up until the gargling, he travelled and jumped beautifully all the way round. It was in a beautiful rhythm. And 25 to 1 is a price that I'll be having a bid of. I think he's got a good chance of getting round this year. If the wind's all been sorted out now, I think he can see out the trip. I'm hoping he'll see out the trip. He's travelling, as I said before, he's a jump and travel all day long, really. But the concern is, will his breathing hold up?
I think he's not in the same rich vein of form as he was last year. I fancied him for the Ladbrokes. He won that. I didn't fancy him at Kelso, as I thought this was too tough a task, but he won that really nicely. And then I did fancy him for the National, and I was very bullish on his chances. With the National, you always fancy maybe a couple of horses. Well, my couple of horses were Burrow, Saint, and Cloth Cap. So you can imagine how annoyed I was when Cloth Cap was travelling beautifully, then got to Canal Turn, and it all sort of went downhill very quickly. Stopped, and in fact, I was watching the footage they were showing on ITV Racing earlier today of last season's Grand National, and you can just see him pulled up, turning away with Tom Scudamore on board, and you almost get the feeling that Tom Scudamore was looking down and thinking, what on earth happened there? Because I was travelling brilliantly, nice posse, bowling along, doing my own thing. I've just got to Noble Yates's, not Noble Yates, blinking heck, no, Jet. I've got to Jet's, Christ, it would have been a 6-year-old who's not able to run in the race. I've got to Jet's quarters, we've reeled him in, and, oh, no, there's nothing left here. And obviously it was detected it was a wind issue. They've sorted it. Yes, he doesn't normally win his first race of the season, so you can normally expect him to do better once he's had that run into him. But he just hasn't had that same progression. He hasn't quite built on it this year. And it's a little, well, it's not just a little concern for me. It is a bit of a huge concern because I just think, again, there's other horses that are in much richer veins of form.
Tom, would he be a pick for you at a big price each way?
I'll go on the form, unfortunately. Not the same vein.
Okay, that's very interesting. Number 31 brings us on to one of the favourites for the race, Snow Leopardess. As I said earlier on with Easy's Land, had the race been ran today, she would have had a great chance and probably ran well. I'm not convinced she's going to stay the trip. She scrambled home in the Beecher on soft ground just over 3 miles in December. The ground's going to be against her this time around. It's going to be, looks like forecast good ground here. She'll jump and travel very well. There's been for me, looking at past years of the Beach Chase, you rarely find a Beach winner who goes to win the Grand National. More often not, they don't stay. You look at Black Lion, Highland Lodge, to name 2 horses who just didn't stay the trip. Violon Rouge to another horse who didn't quite get home over 4 miles and plus. Stone Leopardess to me is going to be the same here. She'll give a bold sight for a long way. She jumped Beecher's Brook in the beach like I've never seen before. Just a terrific leap. But I think she's going to, I think when she's probably crying wolf, I think there'll be others who are just starting to come into their own, and I can't back her.
No, same man. No, go on, Tom. Sorry.
It'd be nice for all the Fox Pits and the great Alice Plunkett, really, if she did win. But I just have a fear over the ground. She was beaten behind Galvin, and Ascari 10 was a lot closer to Galvin. I just think that if it was softer, like you say, Luke, if it was run today, she'd have an absolute whale of a chance. But I'm not too sure, unfortunately. Don't get me wrong, I would absolutely love it for the connections if she won. But I just feel no, unfortunately. She's not the pick for me.
And Jack, yourself, are you with or against Snow Leopardess?
Unfortunately, for connections, I'm against. Obviously, this is going to be a fantastic story for the connections. Fox Pit's absolutely fantastic, and even for the wider general public who don't necessarily follow her day in, day out racing, she is a mum. she's 9-year-old. She's a grey, so she's a mum and she's a grey, so she's going to have that sort of fancied public. But no, not for me. But she might put in a ball drum.
I think from a romantic point of view, it's a fantastic story for the race, and I think it's a brilliant sort of story. I can see her being well backed on the day because so many once-a-year punters will latch onto her. As you said before, she's grey or effectively white now. She's a girl. She's given birth to a foal and everything like that. I think a lot of people will latch onto that. But as I said before, I think when she's starting to cry wolf, I think others will be coming up and starting to revel in the stamina test. And I think she's too short. I think 8-1's far too short for her.
That's tight.
She was 7s. She's now 8-1. She was 7s yesterday. She slashed from 14s to 7s over the last weekend, and I was sort of scratching my head as to why. I just can't work out why. If you watch that Beat to Chase run, 2 strides later, Hill 16 gets her. Doesn't fill me with too much hope going into a national. That was on her favoured ground too. What's going to make her stay 4 mile 2 on ground that's not going to suit her?
Exactly, completely right.
Now, moving on, Augusta Gold. She's intriguing and a huge price. She does stay pretty well. Stays 3 mile 4. Was a good second over 3 mile 2 last time out. Finished in front of Sam Crow, who finished 3rd. She wouldn't be my idea of the winner, but I can see her outrunning her odds.
And the Masters are starting this week, so it's appropriate enough for her name, but no, not for me.
Tom, yourself?
No.
I just think she could be one who could pop up somewhere along the line. I'm not going to back her, but I can just see her being one at a huge price. So you look back and think, wow, she actually ran quite well. That's from just how I look at it. Phoenix Way coming into this. I can't make a case for him.
No case. Can't make a case for him.
Unfortunately not.
And unfortunately, yep, I think he'll struggle in this. Dicer Abba, I know, Jack, you've backed him a couple of times before. I'll pass this ball to you. Where are you at with him?
This was run at Sandown. He'd be my pick, but it's not, so he's in the bin, sorry.
Tom, Dicer Abba, yes or no?
Prefers Sandown, and this isn't Sandown. He would have actually been a good horse to run in the Bet365 Gold Cup. The former Whitbread Gold Cup would have been perfect for him, I think, Definitely. But not the national.
If he wasn't to get round or run a proper race here, then that could be a possibility. A couple of weeks later, you do tend to find that sometimes. Horses you go to
Indeed you do.
So that's one to keep an eye out on Saturday. 35 is good old Black Lion. He's 13 years old. Sorry, I've got that completely wrong. Will be the oldest one for a long time to win a Grand National. I think the oldest to have very nearly done it was Vic's Canvas back in 2016 when he came 3rd when he was 12 years old, I do believe. How he didn't fall at Beach first time round, 13 was he? How he didn't fall at Beachersbrook first time, I do not know. It's just a terrible mistake, and he done exceptionally well to finish 3rd. This lad doesn't say the trip, national trip. In 2017, crossing Melling Road under Noel Feely, it was form an orderly queue to collect your money. All of a sudden, didn't quite get home. The following year, under Sampers and Davis, sent off favourite, fell at the first. Last year, I think he finished 6th at a big price. He's been in very good form this year. He's won 2 out of his last 3 starts, so he's clearly enjoying life. A couple of wins at Haydock, was pulled up at Haydock, I do believe, in the national trial, I do believe, on softish ground, I think it was. Where are we at with him? If you're paying 7 places as a bookie, would you want to back him each way for that reason?
Potentially. I mean, it's a bit of an enigma because if he's on a going day, he could run well, but I don't know. I haven't seen enough from him this year. But Skeletons and the 8s is good luck to them.
Tom, where are you at with this wonderful servant?
I just think this lad is still in good form, but I think it needs to be heavy ground myself.
Well, to be fair, he come 6th last year, and it was a pretty sound surface, so he ran quite well there. Which to me,
others are crying enough on a heavy surface. He's like, I'm only just eating my breakfast. I'm getting started.
I did fancy him 2 years ago for this race as well. I think, as an 11-year-old, I thought he had a good chance. A former RSA winner in his pomp for Nigel Twiston Davis too, but. If you're a bookie, if your bookmaker's paying 7 places, I don't think it's the worst bet in the world. I don't think, if I'm being honest, he will take the course. He will get round, I do believe, and I think it's a decent bet if a bookie's paying 7 possible places, which some do. 36 Poker Party. Robbie Power on board, massive price. Unless you're a poker player, I can't really see much of a case for him.
Nope, same here. Next.
Same.
37, intriguing horse. He's got in Death Duty. Jordan Gainford comes in for the ride here. He was one of Gordon Elliott's well-handicapped horses at Cheltenham. It didn't quite happen in the Ultima for him. He's come into the Grand National now. A bit of sweat on to get him in, but he's in at 37. Where are we at with him?
The great Death Duty. Resurgent, but I think still not quite going to get there, sadly. I think that his time would have been a couple of years ago, but he's been injured since then. Great to get him back for a race such as the 3.5 mile race he won at Fairyhouse. I think, was it Fairyhouse or was it Punchestown? One of the two.
Grand National Trial at Fairyhouse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Punchestown.
Punchestown, crikey, yes.
This has been recorded very late. We're all quite tired, so things are not quite accurate as we'd like to be.
Who have I got in my head that won? I've probably got one of the Irish Grand National actual races at Fairyhouse. It's stuck in my head, but never mind.
It's Grand National Trial. He won really nicely from another out-and-out stayer, Champagne Platinum. He got unlucky in the Ultima, but I just think everybody was screaming at him for that one. And he didn't quite get home in that. So I'm thinking it's going to be a similar situation today, sadly.
And Jack, where are you at?
Champagne Platinum, by the way. Tom is the head of the Champagne Platinum fan club, aren't you, Tom?
Well, I thought he'd run really well. The race that Good Boy Bobby was in at Cheltenham that Mr. Fisher won, where I was very privileged to receive a photo accreditation. One of the best days I've ever had in my career, really. Would love to be back there, really. That's the big aim. And I thought he was going to run off really well, and then he just didn't fire that day. But I'm actually quite surprised Champagne Platinum wasn't entered for this race, because I think he might take it to a duck to water, and he's trained by Bolger, but I'd like to see him running in a Beecher first. But yeah, I just think it'd be another case of people latching on to Death Duty, and then he just doesn't quite stay.
Yeah, just only got a few horses to go, but I think Death Duty for me. No, even though he's won that race at Punchestown, I don't think he's the overall pick. I mean, great he's got into the race, fair enough, but no, his Ultima run wasn't for me inspiring enough for me to have any hope of him going into this race, which is a shame because remember about 5 years ago he was seen as something potentially very good.
Indeed, he was. Number 38, one of a couple of reserves to get in the race, which is a rather annoying thing because of last year's race and being a big fan of Secret Reprieve. He was crying out for at least 2 to come out. Didn't come out, and this year 3 or 4 have come out. It's just the way it goes, unfortunately. Domaine de Lille's in this at a huge price. Sean Curran gets a run for his horse. Of course, he was the mastermind behind Irish de Balm in 2008, winning a Scottish National for £42 out the handicap. So he's no stranger to causing a big shock in a big race. I don't think it's going to happen here, though.
First of all, we better mention that Domaine de Lille has a massive fan in the great and powerful Sam Martin. All hail, Sam Martin. Hail. I just think this one's lots and lots and lots to prove on it. And I just want to make a little mention to everyone watching this. Whilst myself and Jack have been buried in our computers with admin and stuff, a certain Luke has been celebrating his birthday. So he's fresh and we're a little bit, square-eyed. Aren't you, Luca?
Yes. I wouldn't say I'm fresh, but probably a little bit more in a better condition than what you used to are.
We're almost there though, but I just think he's gone and mastered a surprise before, but I just can't see this one coming off. I'm really sorry.
I can't see it coming off, especially given his Ida run, which was genuinely not that inspiring. To be honest, he was at the back a long way. He had a few pounds taken off. There's about £7 taken off his back, and unfortunately, he just didn't make the best use of it. So it was a shame, really, because I fancied him that day.
Okay, now coming into number 39, Jack's going to have an almighty grin on his face because it's a clear serve. And people who don't know, Jack's been badgering me all week on Snapchat, basically thinking this lad's going to win. We've had various different agreements about this because I don't think he will, but Jack thinks he does. A Classic Chase winner in January, very impressive one too. People look at the last run in the Ida Chase, in behind a certain wonder mare of Win My Wings, who looked to be absolutely chucked in on her last two occasions, and people might latch onto that piece of form. Yes, that's a very nice piece of form, but unfortunately for me, I don't think that's enough to win the Grand National.
Next bit of form might help with that then. So who did he beat at Warwick in the Classic Chase? Who was second by 13 lengths?
I can't remember.
Jericho Rock.
That's true, man. Well, Chelsea in the Ultimate.
Jericho Rock was second in the Ultimate, and who won it? Corach Rambler. Where did Corach Rambler come in the Ida? Or the Classic Chase, one of the two?
I don't think he ran in the Ida, did he, Corach Rambler?
Yeah, I can't remember if he
It
ran
was
in the Ida.
in the Classic Chase, and I believe a certain individual. It says here that he came fourth.
Form's there, lads. Telling you, I think this lad, he's well in. And given what Win My Wings has done, she's been hammered with a £14 rise for a Scottish National win.
She was chucked in.
She was chucked in. She got an £8 rise for winning the Ida. Eclair Surf got £4 raise for coming second. He snuck in off the bottom of the weights. I tell you now, he doesn't have, for me, he's a funny horse because on the face of his form, he doesn't have that sort of wow factor that says and screams Grand National winner. But then again, some would say that's the same for likes of Mon Moma or Razoncourt, Pinot de Rey, and they won.
He is by Caliphate, who, let's have a look at some of the stallions in question. And Caliphate's one of these who is, he's really made his mark in his life as a national hunt stallion. You've got the great Ziga Boy who won 2 renewals of, I believe it was the Sky Bet Chase.
Yep, Sky Bet, that's correct.
He's won that one. We've got plenty of horses, Timberman, and what for one of the. I just think this lad's got plenty of going in there. You got the great Mulberry Hill. Shout out to Jodie Standing and Dark Horse Racing there. They're all in there. There's a nice amount of stamina going on in that pedigree. And the fact that he's due to go up £4 as well, you're thinking, well, hang on a minute. How impressive was Win My Wings at the weekend? Literally, looked like they'd just been chucked in with 4 furlongs to run and hacked up down the straight in a 5 furlong. In fact, it was more or less like Win My Wings was running the Air Gold Cup instead of the actual Scottish National. It looked like she'd just been chucked in, and this is a horse that had only a month and a half less than that earlier, been running in the Ida over 4 miles. Literally, it was a huge performance from Christian Williams. And I'm just thinking the fact this horse has run over a 3 mile 5, then went to the Ida and came second, giving £11 and only less than 2 lengths to a very impressive horse. I think Emma Lavelle might be the one who sneaks the horse in under the radar here. This one may well be the horse that sneaks in and causes mayhem. If the horse takes the fences, good chance. The only element of concern I will say, they fell on the first time out season by a horse called Snow Leopardess.
Banger, he felt banging that day.
I believe that race happened to be, it was called the Weatherby's National Hunt Stallions .co.uk handicap chase. Someone watching this, please let us know if we were wrong about this, but I believe that was the Anne Duchess of Westminster handicap chase. Used to be known.
I think just going on that, yes, he did fall, and he is prone to making the odd blunder.
That's my concern. That's my concern with him, is that his jumping, at times, it can be sketchy. That's my only concern, really.
It is a bit of a concern for me, but I don't know, I'm willing to take a risk with him because I've been praying all week he gets into the race. I'm not the only one. Social media have also said, please let Eclair Surf go in. In fact, there were a few comments by people who've backed other horses saying the way people are going on about Eclair Surf, it's like he's a certainty for the National. Well, I think he gets in off a low weight for a start. He's been running at near enough higher level weights. He's been carrying, Christ, he carried 11 stone 11 in the Ida, came second. So clearly the weight's not going to be an issue at all. In fact, it might even be a featherweight for him. So
10 stone, yeah, very light. 10 stone 6. That's reading that.
10 stone 6. So, you know, he might run an absolute cracker. And I will definitely be fancying him.
As I mentioned before, my only concerns are jumping, really. He will stay very well, but also there's going to be plenty of pace on this race, I think, up front. Good boy Bobby likes to go forward. He likes to go forward. There's a couple of others who want to go forward too. My concern is for him, if he hits one or two in the first sort of run down to Beaches and he loses position, will he be able to make it up in time and without making another mistake along the way?
Yeah, it's a slight issue. I know there's going to be a lot of pace on, but fingers crossed the jockeys go steady.
I think they will. I mean, they increased that run down to the first for that reason, because if you go back and watch Nationals of past years, they would go ridiculously quick into the first, and more often than not, it'd just be basically carnage.
Yeah, indeed.
Final horse who's in the race, Fortescue got in yesterday, I do believe. Or was it the day before he got in? I think it was one of the two. I'm pretty sure it was yesterday he got in, Fortescue.
Got in today.
Okay, fair enough. Where are we at with him? A good win the last time at Ascot. I can see him going quite well here, to be honest. Now, he outstayed Fiddler on the Roof on soft ground at Ascot. That's a very good run for me because people fancy Fiddler on the Roof to go well. I think he comes in off a very nice weight. We mentioned at the start of the show, there could be one at a nice weight lurking. Hugh Nugent's got a cracking ride here, I think. He won't go far to pick up a better ride in his career national. I think at 28 to 1, it's a lovely price each way. I can see him hitting the frame.
Yeah, indeed. I can see him. He was again one of my shortlisted ones. Henry Daly's got a very good sort. He outstayed Fiddler on the Roof at Ascot, like you say, on soft ground. Not sure his form's totally reliable. I mean, he did run. Was it in the Peter Marsh? Or was it the Grand National Trial he was in at Haydock? I know he ran at Haydock.
I think it was the Peter Marsh. I don't recall him running in the national trial because I think only 4 finished that day. I think it was the Galloping Bear Bristol Domain. I think it was what's he called? Time to Get Up. There we go. That was him. I think 3 finished. I'm not sure if he ran. I need to double check that anyway.
He was definitely ran at Haydock, so I think it was the Peter Marsh. But he was beaten a long way in the Peter Marsh. But again, you know, he's not without a shout. He's off bottom weight now. He gets in. He's guaranteed a run. And again, like I say, Hugh Nugent. Now, Hugh's a £5 conditional at the moment. Again, you probably couldn't argue for a better start to going in a Grand National than on Fortescue. Short jumper.
Yeah. He was third that Peter Marsh behind Royal Pagaille, which isn't too bad of a form, really. He's a grade 1 horse.
Yeah, nice way to end his season, because I believe Hugh was injured until something like the middle of April. And he had a lovely run up at Cartmel. And that was a nice little win. We were lucky enough, myself and Jack, to be there. If it is anyone's watching this, is always fancy going to Cartmel, please do. The course is beautiful. It's set in the Lake District. Not exactly a bad thing. So, yeah, it'd be nice if he could get a run. And if he's on the up, I mean, we've seen stranger things happen, haven't we, in the National? It's the racer could throw up a challenge. It could throw up an absolute rabbit out of a hat kind of thing.
I'm also drawn to this piece of form at Christmas at Kempton. He finished second behind 5-Star Getaway in a 3-mile chase. Down the field that day, in 4th for Kitty's Light and in 8th for Captain Ord. They've both come out and run incredibly well since. That form's looking pretty strong. I'm intrigued to see how 5-Star Getaway gets on tomorrow in the Topham. If he goes well in the Topham, that form again's taking a huge hit. I just think at a massive price, I think he's the one at the bottom of the weight, so I'd be one at the back, and I will be backing him. I'd be more keen on him than I would be a Claire Surf.
Okay, fair enough. No comment from me.
Before we depart the preview, guys, give me your who do you fancy to win this? If you had to know your colours to the mast on one horse, who is it and why?
I think I'll put this over to Tom first.
I think Enjoy Daly. I think he's got a right profile for a national winner, and as long as he takes to the fences, he's got a good chance. But there are plenty in there on my shortlist. There's at least 8.
Jack, who are you sort of siding with? If you had to nail your cards to the mast right now with one particular win bet, who would that be and why?
See, I'm torn between three.
You can't have three.
I'll give you my forecast in ascending order. So out of the 5 picks I'd have probably 2 for Gold in 5th, Good Boy Bobby in 4th. In 3rd, we'd go Kill This Art. 2nd would be Eclair Surf, and 1st Any Second Now.
Intriguing.
I think Any Second Now. If we're talking about nailing colours to the mast, he's got the right profile. His jumping will be fine. Fingers crossed he gets some luck, and I don't think that £8 rise from last year's race is going to be enough to stop him. So, yeah, that would be mine. But again, very tight choice between Eclair Surf and even Kildesart, as we talked about. Kildesart could run a screamer, and yeah, hopefully he'll be bang there. But yeah, Any Second Now.
I'm in agreement with you. I think my sort of prediction for the sort of placings, I think it'd be a JP 1-2. I think Any Second Now wins it, and I think Enjoy Dellen comes second. I'd have Kildesart in around 4th. Haven't worked out who comes 3rd yet, to be honest. I'd have
Longhouse Poet.
I have to get my watering can out so that flat's happen, unfortunately. It worked at Cheltenham and it can work here. That's a private joke for people who probably don't understand that. I think going back to what I said, Any Second Now first, Enjoy Dallin second, Kildesart 4th, I think. Fortescue will probably come 5th or 6th. I haven't worked out who comes 3rd or 4th. I just can't work out at the moment. But for me, I think JP has a 1-2 here. Either way.
Well, fingers crossed to all.
Right, guys. That's been our national preview.
Let's have a safe race and let's have all of them come back safe and sound most of all.
We've gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. If we still can't find the winner, we might as well give up now. I've been myself. Big thanks to Tom and Jack for joining me today. I'm not too sure when we'll do another preview. We'll just have to wait and see what comes up along the way. But hopefully everyone enjoys the national. It'll be a great day. And let's hope we found the winner here somewhere.
Indeed.